WCCS AM 1160 and 101.1 FM. You can join us on Facebook Live as we talk with Indiana County District Attorney Pat Dougherty joining us this morning. And what a topic this is. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. This is an interesting thing. The fourth annual Day of Prayer and Education to Combat Human Trafficking is coming up.
Yeah, the Diocesan Council of Catholic Women started this 4 years ago. Human trafficking has become a hot button topic, not only here in Pennsylvania, but all across the U.S. And 4 years ago, they had an event down in Greensburg, and they asked me to come speak, and I spoke with a assistant DA from Westmoreland County. And so this year they're hosting it at St. Bernard's this Saturday, and so they asked me to come and speak again and give some updates on some of the things that we're working on with the Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association, as well as what we're seeing here on a local level.
Help us define the term, human trafficking.
Human trafficking, it's akin to modern-day slavery, is the way the definition works. And it involves use of force, fraud, coercion to obtain labor or some sort of behavior. Commercial sex act is a big one. There's millions of men, women, and children in this country that are subject to human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And it takes so many different forms. I like to tell people that one of the main forms it takes here is we see it in the opioid epidemic.
Oh, I see.
Okay, where you'll have people that are addicted to opioids, and their dealer, for example, has them performing sex acts, has them going out and dealing to feed their own habit. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of force and control. And what happens is these dealers will come in from out of the area. They'll move into an apartment with a person, man, woman, doesn't matter, and children. In fact, we've recently had a case where there was a woman who her drug dealer was assaulting her young daughter, and it actually went to trial here, and he was convicted of that. So we do see it, and it's the control. When you hear human trafficking, a lot of people will confuse that with smuggling.
Okay,
smuggling is different. Smuggling is where somebody voluntarily chooses to come to this country through illegal means, trying to avoid immigration. Mm-hmm. Okay, but they're making a conscious choice to do that. Now, could they end up being trafficked? Sure, they could. But they're originally at the outset making that choice voluntarily. Mm-hmm. This is where we'll see people that and it doesn't have to be sexual acts. It can be forced labor. It could be domestic servitude. People that are forced into taking care of people's homes or yards or mm-hmm. those type of things. It's billions of dollars every year in this country.
Sounds like the victims are not just going to be young folks, but young folks are particularly vulnerable.
Young are vulnerable, and they prey on the weak. They prey on people that are disadvantaged, that have poor economics, mm-hmm. And they're easily preyed upon, or someone that doesn't have a family structure.
Yeah. So this event is coming up on Saturday, and it's from 1 to 3 p.m. at the St. Bernard Parish Hall.
Yes.
And there's an RSVP.
They want you to try to RSVP. There's an email. It's RSVP with the letter F at hotmail.com.
Okay.
Just send them an email there, or you can RSVP to 724-537-2064, and that's through the Diocesan Council of Catholic Women. This is open to the public. This is not just limited to people of the Roman Catholic faith. This is about anybody that's interested in learning about this. I'll be speaking, presenting for about 45 minutes is what I'm slotted. There will be some prayer and some things of that nature as well, but I'm there to provide the educational component.
So take us inside what it is that you're going to tell people. I assume you're going to tell them
Sure.
this is how you recognize when there's human trafficking.
There's certain indicators that you look for. As I said earlier, it's not just people in box cars or people in
the trunk of a car.
The trunk of a car.
Yeah.
They are among us daily, and we don't even know it. Does the person appear disconnected from their family? Has a child stopped attending school? Those type of things. So, there's all these different things. Obviously, if a juvenile is involved in a sexual activity, that's something right in and of itself that is human trafficking for commercial purposes. So, and then we're also going to talk about Pennsylvania, some of the legislation involving safe haven and some of those safe harbor issues that we're trying to put together here in Pennsylvania to help combat this.
And obviously, when people see something of that nature or suspect something of that nature, there has to be some sort of way that they are able to report that. Who do they report to, and how is it investigated?
It should always be reported to law enforcement. Do not attempt to confront a human trafficker. Notify law enforcement in your jurisdiction, whether it's your municipal police or your state police, and then we will investigate.
You mentioned that the opiate trade has really increased human trafficking around our area and all throughout Pennsylvania and really the nation. What are some of the other circumstances that people would use as their key?
Yeah. Well, as I said, this is $1 billion industry. So it doesn't. I don't want to limit it to the opioid epidemic. It's anywhere where sweatshops, for example. You want to get a cheap labor source, so you bring these people in, against their will, and you put them to work. I mean, we see that. Working in hotels as maintenance workers or custodial staff, those type of things.
I would assume that in many cases, for people who are not citizens of the United States, when they are brought here to the United States, the fact that they have family living back in their country of origin, that plays a role in the level of control that their human traffickers would be able to exert over them.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but there's language barriers. Maybe they don't speak our language very well, so it's hard to articulate that they're being held against their will, that they're being forced into this type of activity. There's a multitude of things, but I don't want to focus just on non-Americans. This happens to our own citizens every day. People that are disadvantaged every day.
What are some of the resources that you're able to draw on as the district attorney in order to investigate? I'm sure that there's a network of law enforcement agencies working on the problem.
Absolutely. The Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association has made this one of our main initiatives over the last several years. The federal government, through the United States Attorney's Office and the FBI, they are working very closely with local law enforcement to fight this. So as I said, this is a national problem. This isn't just a local problem. In fact, I've had people come up to me and say, well, that doesn't happen here. Here in quiet little old Indiana County. Sure it does. We just don't know it to see it. And when you do see it, you're like, oh, wow. How didn't I notice that sooner?
And maybe there's something going on in somebody's life that you just don't recognize as that being what's going on.
True. Very true. There's so many different circumstances that can trigger this type of issue, and it can be subtle. It's not, as you said earlier, stuffing somebody in a trunk. That's not necessarily what happens. So, there are some indicators, as I spoke about, if a child stops coming to school, that's a concern, and not enrolling in a different school, obviously. Does the person appear to be fearful and submissive? Do they often defer to the person that's with them? Those type of things.
Pat Dougherty, our Indiana County DA, is with us this morning. We're talking about the 4th Annual Day of Prayer and Education to Combat Human Trafficking. It's happening on Saturday from 1 to 3 at the St. Bernard Parish Hall here in Indiana. RSVP, the letter F, at hotmail.com. There's also a number here, 724-537-2064. Being the fourth annual, and you've spoken at these before, you've probably been able to speak with people afterwards. What have been some of the reactions that you've gotten?
Oh, the fact that it happens in small communities, rural America as well as suburban America and in the inner cities, it happens all over. And I think people getting just educated to understand what it is that we're talking about. This isn't just, the cargo ships packed with people. That's one element of it, but that's not what we see on a day-to-day basis here. Like I said, the main thing we see here, a lot of what we see is due to the opioid epidemic. Yeah. And so, we're trying to work with our partners in the state and in the federal government to try to bring awareness as well as an understanding so that people feel safe to reach out and get people the help they need.
All right. No cost to attend.
No, it's free to attend.
Saturday, 1 to 3, St. Bernard Parish Hall, RSVP, the letter F, at hotmail.com. Mr. DA, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM.